Mary's, Georgia may be one of the most charming coastal cities here in small town Georgia, but is it the right fit for you? Today, I'm diving in on the top 5 pros and top 5 cons of living in St. Mary's, Georgia. And when I get to one of these cons, you might just be rethinking charming St. Mary's waterfront coastal life. So let's dive right in. Pro number 1 is the historic charm and the waterfront downtown area. Super cute, very well done. They do a great job of keeping up with the downtown area. And so it is a very big pro of living in St. Mary's. I mean, you've got the river access right there. And so if you're a big boater, fisher, kayaking, any kind of outdoor sports activities, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but you've got that right there. And not only that, you've got it, a lot of people drive golf carts around the waterfront area. It's very small town feel. And that's something that a lot of people love when living in St. Mary's. So the downtown area does a good job of hosting events every year, especially around the fall time. I feel like fall is the best time for outdoor activities and festivals, community events, and it's just nice to have the waterfront area and downtown St. Mary's to, have a hub for those events. But there's not a lot of stuff in the downtown area. There are a few boutiques, antique shops, there's a coffee shop, there's a couple restaurants, and I feel like it's trending in the right direction, but it still is a little bit small. So when you think about a downtown area, do not picture downtown Atlanta or probably any other downtown area, or you may get here and be like, oh, okay, because it's very small, but it is very cute, very charming. You can see some of the historic homes when driving around there or taking walks around there, and it really is beautiful. So that is one of the number 1 pros to living down here, is just that small coastal historic charm of the downtown area and the waterfront in particular. And that leads me into pro number 2, and that is access to Cumberland Island. So that is actually located, you have to take a ferry over to Cumberland Island, and if you've never looked up Cumberland Island, just a quick little Google search or click the link down below in the description box. It's absolutely stunning. They do an amazing job of preserving the natural beauty and the history. You can see the ruins out there, wild horses. The only way you can get over there is by the ferry or by boat. And that ferry leaves from downtown St. Mary's. So it is the gateway to Cumberland Island. So that's definitely one of the biggest perks, and it does bring tourism to the St. Mary's area. That is downtown at the waterfront, and it's amazing to have that access right there, especially if you are a big outdoor adventurist and you like to go hiking. You can go camping out there. There are different times where you can sign up and do different hunting trips out there. And then obviously just boating, fishing, kayaking, all of that fun stuff. Okay, and pro number 3 is the naval base is right here in St. Mary's. So we are home to Kings Bay Naval Submarine Base. I put this on a pro of living in Kingsland as well, because if you aren't aware, Kingsland is about right here and St. Mary's kind of wraps around Kingsland. So the base may actually be in both cities technically. I think the address is St. Mary's, but it's like right smack in the middle of all of it. So both Kingsland and St. Mary's alike are a very big military town. And with that come it's a patriotic place to be. It's a great naval base. So if you have access to bases, military bases, you will love Kings Bay Naval Submarine Base. My husband actually works on the base, so we've been there. They've got a great kids center. It's called the Crab. It's an indoor play zone. And they do a great job of doing events there. The kids can go jump on the bouncy houses. There's a library in there, and just like a little fun play zone and slides and stuff like that. It's really nice, especially since it gets really hot around here and we don't have a ton of indoor activities. So the Crab on the base is really nice, and there's a pool and tennis and I mean literally everything. And they have one of the best trunk or treat events ever. We go every single year. It's so fun. So if you are military and you have access to the base, or your spouse has access, you will love living in St. Mary's, even if you are a veteran and not an active military. But if you are relocating here for military, which a lot of you are, definitely reach out to me. My name's Cassie along with Horizon Realty, and I help so many individuals and families just like you relocate right here to coastal Georgia. So I'll put all my information right here on the screen. Pause it. If you are making a move to work at Naval Submarine Base Kings Bay, definitely reach out. Or if you're just moving to St. Mary's because you want a slower pace of life. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But that is definitely one of the pros of living in this area, is having access to the submarine base. Okay, and pro number 4 is the cost of living and housing variety. So because St. Mary's is a coastal town, and I say coastal, but you don't necessarily have direct beach access. Now you have the marsh, rivers, coastal waterways, all that kind of stuff. So boating, very easy. And if you have a boat, you can very easily have beach access by hopping on your boat at the St. Mary's waterfront or one of the other inlets that go all throughout the city. And you can very, very easily be in Fernandina, Amelia Island, so that you have beach access. If you don't have a boat, you can still get there by car, and it's only going to take you about 35 minutes probably. So you still have pretty close beach access. But what's unique about St. Mary's is you get to live in a coastal town and be close to beaches, but have more affordability. So many people that call me, they're just tired of the prices in Florida. They want to be coastal, but the insurance is crazy in Florida. The taxes are higher. Everything's higher in Florida. So they're like, oh, I'll just be right over the Georgia line and get to take advantage of the coastal lifestyle, but have a lower cost of living. So that's one of the perks of living in St. Mary's. St. Mary's is for a coastal town. It's relatively affordable. Now we do have some houses that, they get up there, but you have a wide range of housing options to choose from. You can live in Osprey Cove and have the golf course, life and the luxurious lifestyle of living in that gated community with every single amenity that you could ever want. Or you can live in a smaller neighborhood that isn't gated and still very nice and secure. Winding River is a great option as far as that. That's not gated, and you're not going to pay a super high premium, but you're still getting a great house. So, you could be anywhere in the upper 200s all the way up into the millions. You start looking at Cumberland Harbor and that price starts to get up there, but we do have more affordable homes ranging anywhere from the 300,000s all the way up into like the $1 million mark. So you have options as far as housing is concerned. And that leads me into pro number 5, and that is that St. Mary's is a very small town, which means it's a very tight-knit community. So around here, you likely are going to know your neighbors, become friends with your neighbors, see them at your kids' school drop-off, see them at soccer practice, see them again at church, see them at the coffee shop. You're going to see people that you know everywhere. So if you're the type of person that doesn't want to know your neighbors, wants to have your AirPods in and nobody say hello to you, then, St. Mary's, I'm not going to say it's not the place for you, but you will find the Southern hospitality is very much alive and well and living strong. With it being a southern town and a small town at that, everybody kind of knows everybody. Your circles are going to cross, your paths are going to cross with multiple people. So that is one of the perks of living around here. Your neighbors are going to look out for you and look out for your house when you're away and give you a cup of sugar if you run out of cup of sugar and all that fun kind of stuff that comes along with living in a small town. Not to mention there are a decent amount of like community groups and places you can get plugged in. So if you're retired, there's a lot of different activities for you, or just young families, anything like that. There's tons of just places where you can get plugged in and find community, as it's very strong here in St. Mary's. All right, now let's go right into the cons. So this first one is kind of big. So St. Mary's has very limited nightlife and shopping scene. So if you're the type of person that on a Sunday afternoon after church, you want to go to a fun new restaurant and then you want to go shopping all day, you might find St. Mary's a little bit limited in that realm. So we do have restaurants and we do have some cute local restaurants. But you're gonna have about 3 or 4 to cycle through. It's not gonna be trying a new restaurant every single weekend or anything like that. We don't have very many of them. The ones that we do have are very good. We just don't have a ton of them. And then as far as shopping, we have a few local boutiques, and then there are some regular kind of chain stores, but St. Mary's and Kingsland don't even have a Target. Like, there's a Walmart, but there's not a Target, and that's a big deal for some people. But what is great about living in St. Mary's is you're very close to Yulee, Florida, which has a ton of those shopping options. I'm talking Target, TJ Maxx, Home Goods. I mean, like literally everything you could need, and you can be there in, I think, like 20 minutes. So it's really not that far. And then you're not far from Jacksonville, which is a huge city. So you have tons of shopping options in Jacksonville. And not to mention, a lot of people do shopping online these days. What can you not get on Amazon? Being aware of that, if you are an entrepreneur, then there's a huge market for you here. Please come open an amazing, trendy restaurant. We would love to have you. Yeah, take all that with a grain of salt. There are some restaurants and there are some local boutiques, antique stores, cute shops and stuff. But if you want a wide variety, you will have to drive just a little bit outside of St. Mary's to find them. All right, and con number 2, and this is going to loop in, well, with everything, but mainly the first pro that we talked about. Remember that beautiful coastal waterfront in the downtown area? I mean, it's so cute. And there's a great playground down there. And I remember like the first time we went down there, we're like, oh, we'll just go walk on the waterfront, let the kids play at the playground, and then we'll walk down to the market and get ice cream. It'll be so cute. We got absolutely annihilated by mosquitoes and gnats, like horrifically annihilated. It was not enjoyable. It was not fun. We cut everything short. The kids are trying to play and we're like, we have to go. Like they're swarming. So we have a lot of humidity, which brings a lot of mosquitoes and brings a lot of gnats. You kind of learn to live with them as you live here. Like the first time we did that, we were like, okay, well now we understand like you don't go places that are on the marsh at certain times, dawn and dusk. You just don't do it because the gnats and the mosquitoes will eat you alive. And when you're shopping for houses and when you call me, I'll be sure to inform you of this more as we begin our house hunting process. This is something I, definitely make aware to all of my clients. If there is a porch, you're going to want to screen it in. So if it's not already screened in, you definitely want to budget for that as far as like a back porch. Otherwise, you probably just won't sit on it. And if you do sit on it, you won't enjoy it. And the bugs aren't bad 24/7, but they're out a lot of times of the year. Now we do have higher seasons where they're hatching and doing those kinds of things, but think about like the most enjoyable times of the year, spring when you're starting to garden, and then fall when it's starting to cool down just a little bit. They're like just rabid during that time. So anyway, the humidity and the bugs can be a big turnoff to some people, but you do learn what bug sprays work and which ones don't, and what times to go outside and how to protect yourself and still live and enjoy the beautiful scenery around you, because St. Mary's is an absolutely stunning place to live. You want to be able to enjoy all that coastal Georgia has to offer, and a lot of that is outdoors. Okay, and with that brings me to con number 3. Because St. Mary's is absolutely stunning and it's a big outdoor place, we have a ton of trees, and we have a lot of oak trees and pine trees. And with those 2 trees come a lot of seasonal allergies. So if you are a person that has bad seasonal allergies, or maybe if you don't have them yet, you may develop them. So when I lived in Atlanta, I did not have seasonal allergies. And when I lived in Brunswick, I did not have seasonal allergies. And then we moved to Camden County, which is where St. Mary's, and we don't live in St. Mary's, but we do live within the county, and we're kind of in the woods, so a lot of pine trees. And my seasonal allergies went just crazy. Out of nowhere, every single March, I get hit. But now I know to prepare for it, and it's not that bad. Earthly Wellness has a really great tincture, so if you're the kind of person that doesn't want to take Claritin every day, let me know, and I'll give you all the recommendations on the more holistic side of it, because there are things that you can do, and you kind of learn the seasons, and like a whole week ahead of time, I'm just gonna take my little tincture and you'll be okay. But the tree pollen, it does get crazy. Your cars are going to turn yellow, your deck is gonna turn yellow, your front porch is gonna be yellow, everything's gonna be, it literally looks like a blanket of snow, but yellow. So that's just one thing to be aware of, is the seasonal allergies. And con number 4, this should come at no shock to you that you are in at the risk of flooding and hurricanes/tropical storms. So we do have seasons for our tropical storms and hurricane flooding. Really, I mean, with heavy rains can happen any time of the year. Obviously, you're more prone to it during tropical storm and hurricane season, but it can happen any time of year. Downtown St. Mary's is definitely prone to flooding. If you just do a quick Google search, you'll probably see a lot of videos from previous years. But there are other parts of St. Mary's that are higher up and don't flood. So I'll link the FEMA map below for the flood zones, but that's something to be aware of when you start house hunting, and that's something I'll talk about with you more specifically once we're working together on a client, realtor-client relationship. It's just knowing the flood zones are a little bit weird. So some houses, like you might have one house in a neighborhood in a flood zone and then the next one's not, or half your backyard's in a flood zone and your house is not. So it's kind of hard, like even just an initial conversation to say, don't look here if you don't want to be in a flood zone. It's something to be aware of because it does change your buying power when you're looking at your mortgage, because if your lender requires you to carry flood insurance, then that is worked into your monthly mortgage. So that affects how much you can afford for your house. Okay, and con number 5 is that we talked about St. Mary's is a small town. It's charming, it's coastal, everybody loves the tight-knit community, but for some, the small town might just be too small. And I'll be honest, I've had clients come and they're like, St. Mary's looks beautiful, it sounds great, you know, and they plan a weekend to come down and they've never been before, and they're like, where are all the people? They're downtown, and maybe they wanted to buy a rental downtown, and they're like, where is everybody? It's not like a, you know, big hub nightlife hotspot, you know. So we do have some areas in downtown St. Mary's that do make great rentals, and their Airbnbs and VRBOs being right there, you know, at the waterfront. But overall, it's not like a huge touristy area that is completely booming. It still is a little bit too small and quiet for some people, but some people love that small town feel and slower pace of life. So if that is what you're looking for, that small town feel and slower pace of life while still being coastal, and these cons didn't scare you off, then just reach out to me. All my information's down in the description box below. Again, my name's Cassie Long with Horizon Realty, and I would love the opportunity to chat with you and help you make a move to St. Mary's. And if you want to know more about living in St. Mary's and get the full picture of what it's like, I put together an entire playlist just for you. You can binge watch that right here.